Hi everyone, my name is Kaitlin, and I'm on the national leadership team for Move to Amend, and I'm here in Eureka, California, and I'm going to lead this webinar this afternoon. Hopefully everyone can hear me right now and see the screen all right. If you have any trouble, you can let me know in the chat bar on the left-hand side of your screen. So like I said, you should be hearing audio now. If you are, let me actually, here, real quick, type this in. So, just in case there's anyone. So everyone should be able to hear audio now, and the screen should have moved to the slide. And if you need to call in via conference call, you're welcome to do that. Just know that there's long distance charges for whatever your long distance is. So if you have questions or difficulties, you can chat your comments or questions on the bottom. I'm going to turn them so that only I can see it, so it doesn't disturb anyone else. And I'll try to look at that as frequently as I can as we go along. So let's dive right in. So what we're going to talk about today is how you can get involved with Move to Amend in 2013. Since there are a lot of new folks on the line, I'm going to start with a quick overview of Move to Amend, and then I'm going to go over what we have planned for 2013 so far. I mean, obviously as a campaign, as things come up, we will adjust, and there might be breaking things that we get involved with, but we just had a meeting of our national leadership team last month in December, and this is what we mapped out, and some of these things we've been talking about for quite a while now, and our affiliates knew they were coming. And then I'm just going to tell you about announcements, and then if there are any questions that anyone has about our projects for 2013, and if there's time, I could also potentially answer general questions about Move to Amend, and then I'll let you know of steps and how to plug in with all this stuff. So, just diving right into some background on Move to Amend. Hopefully everybody who's here knows that Move to Amend is a national campaign to pass a constitutional amendment that says that artificial entities like corporations or limited liability companies or nonprofits or unions or PACs, all of the above, and anything else that might come into existence in the future, anything did by government, like, and the legal term is an artificial entity, is not entitled to constitutional rights. And then the second part of our platform is that money is not free speech, and therefore campaign spending and donations can be regulated. So we're working on an amendment to the U.S. Constitution that will have both of these points in it. Our deeper, longer-term agenda is constitutional renewal generally. We're interested in provoking questions and discussion of how best to ensure that we have power for we the people and to make the promise of a democracy a reality. So while we have a short-term, if you will, vision of this particular constitutional amendment, we are also interested in provoking deeper conversations about what a more democratic constitution and law generally would look like, and how we can make sure that our power is protected and that we have the world that we want and that we deserve. So our strategy for both this constitutional amendment campaign and our deeper agenda is to build a grassroots democracy movement. It's our belief that nothing short of a broad movement is going to get this done. We can't look to Congress to do it. We can't look to the president to do it. It's just something that we need to do, and therefore we need to build this movement. So our emphasis is on coalition building. Move to Amend is a coalition, and we ask all of our local groups to prioritize coalition building and connecting with other organizations that are working for justice and democracy and to make the world better, however they define that. We want to build a broad and diverse movement, emphasizing a multiracial movement, because in the past, racism, particularly in this country, has been used to divide us whenever we've had a populist movement. So it's really important that we inoculate against that kind of division by making sure that we've built relationships and connections and solidarity across racial divides. And Of course, that is not the only thing that divides us, and so we also need to make sure that we're building a multi-class movement, a multi-gender movement, movement that has all age ranges and that is diverse across the country. But in particular, we're teasing out anti-racism because of the historical realities of working for democracy in the United States. We also really want to emphasize community organizing for power, not just activism. So this is not an effort to just get people to sign a petition or click through on their computers. This is a movement to get people out, to build relationships and power at the local, federal, and state levels. Ultimate. So we want to make sure we're growing our own skills and capacity as community organizers, because that's what is going to be necessary to mobilize the numbers that we're going to need. And we have a focus on local organizing because we believe that that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where people have the most power currently in the system where we actually don't structurally have a lot of power. And it's also where we can build the deepest relationships and organize most effectively. And so, we don't have an office in Washington, D.C. We have local affiliates all over the country. At this point, there are over 150 and growing every week. And those of us who are working at the national level, our background and history is in doing local community organizing. And so while we are working on a national campaign, our emphasis is to do it from the ground up. And our target is the American people, not Congress. Ultimately, that's where we need to go, but we don't want to go to Congress until we have millions of people who are engaged with this campaign. And in order to do that, we need to focus on organizing and movement building and all the stuff that I already said, and hopefully you'll see how the projects that we have lined up for the year ahead really emphasize outreach to regular, everyday people in our communities and all of these principles that our strategy is about. So, just the last thing in terms of getting involved with Move to Amend and being clear and transparent about who we are. These are our principles and values. We prioritize accountability and responsibility as an organization and for everyone who's involved. We're committed to transparency and making clear what we're about, and we try to do that through our website and all of our communications. We, as I said, emphasize community and local democracy because that's how we believe that change happens, as well as movement building because that's how we believe that that power is gained through movements. And we think it's obviously very important that if somebody is going to get involved with Move to Amend, that there's a commitment and dedication to our goals and mission and tactics. In particular, because there are a lot of other organizations that have stepped into this fight since the Citizens United ruling that are emphasizing much more Citizens United. And we want to be very clear that Move to Amend is about more than just overturning Citizens United. Citizens United is just the most recent example of corporations exercising their constitutional rights. And so this is not a campaign that's just about money and politics. This is about democracy. And lastly, we have a commitment to anti-oppression, and we do that in our organization as well as individuals. So I want to tell you about what we're going to be doing in 2013, and also if anybody has questions along the way, we can see how it goes to just ask them along the way, but I might skip over if it's something that I'm going to answer anyway, or if it would make sense for us to get into a deeper point at the end. So feel free as we're going to type your questions in, and if I skip them, that just means that we'll make sure to come back to them at the end and spend a little bit more time on them. But that way, you don't have to hold on to them, you can just put them out there. So, 2013, one of the projects that we're going to work on is Resolve, a project that is continued from 2012, where we had a lot of success. We worked on local resolutions all across the country, and really our local affiliates are who deserve the huge huzzah for getting nearly 500 local resolutions passed to date. And as we continue on with this project in 2013, it's really important that we emphasize public education, not just getting these resolutions passed. Because the whole purpose of the resolution efforts is not just to have a long list of communities that have passed resolutions. And that's a powerful thing to bring to, say, state legislators or federal representatives. But really, what's most important is that we have brought this campaign to the people who live in the community where the resolution is being considered. So if you're going to work on a resolution campaign, we emphasize citizens' initiatives whenever possible, which means putting it on the ballot so that citizens have the opportunity to vote on the resolution themselves. If that isn't possible, because not every community and every state allows for citizens' initiatives, then the plan B is to ask the city council or county commissioners or county supervisors or to village council, whatever it is in your community, to pass the resolution. And what the resolutions say, that are just calling for an amendment to the Constitution, say we in this community support an amendment to the Constitution, and we are letting our state and federal representatives know that we want them to support this amendment as well. And so the way to maximize public education for this kind of a project is to make sure that you're doing petition gathering in your community ahead of time, that you're getting media when you're going to the council, and that you're not just going to, your friend on the council or somebody a colleague that you helped elect, hey, would you please pass this, and then they get it on the agenda tomorrow, and then the council passes it, but then no one in your town knows that it happened. So there's a lot of information on our website about how to maximize that public participation. If you go to movetoamend.org in our Take Action Toolkit, under resolutions, you can see the direct link on the screen there. And remember that this will be recorded, so you could always come back and find this later. And just so folks know, our agenda for 2013 is, to try and get these passed wherever they haven't already been passed, but also in particular to gear up for statewide ballot initiatives in a number of states in 2014. And we're still working out the details about which states, but we're looking most likely at California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, Ohio, possibly Michigan, possibly Maine, and possibly Missouri. And there's a lot of conversation to go into all of which states make the most sense, and a lot of it has to do with which states it's possible to do a ballot initiative in. But I don't want to get too excited about that, because that's more for 2014, and that's more of an internal conversation at this point, but just for the sake of transparency, to give everyone a heads up. So let me try real quick here, turning this light on in the back, because I know that it might just give more backlight, so that might help a little bit. That it's going to start getting dark here. And if the screen is, if my image is distracting, really just let me know. I can turn it off. Okay, so moving on to the next project, which is Pledge to Amend. Pledge to Amend is going to focus on on state legislators to get them to pledge to support our amendment when it comes to the states to ratify. Remember that the ways to amend the Constitution are for it to go through Congress, which is the route that we're trying first, and then the states need to ratify it. And actually, either way, the states are going to need to ratify the amendment. So that means that state legislators are certainly an actor in this, and going on our principle, kind of building from the ground up, we've done a lot of work at the local level, and we need to continue to do that work at the local level, but it's also time to start to introduce this issue to state legislators. And then in 2014, we'll be looking at candidates as well. So the emphasis with this will be skills building and to some extent education, but the target is a smaller number than the general populace. And we're going to particularly, hopefully, grow all of our skills at citizen lobbying. So this campaign will begin in February and run through June. And the idea is that we'll have monthly house party meetings and for planning and for training. And so some who were involved with our Resolutions Week effort last year remember that we basically had an opportunity for you to pull together people in your community to join in with the project. So this will be the same. And then we will spend some time doing outreach to local and state organizations that are in your jurisdiction to help build a better case to your legislator for why they should pledge to support Move to Amend. So it'll be an opportunity to also do outreach to these organizations and get them involved, and then it will culminate in the Citizen Lobbying Week. and we will have some training opportunities online and be a conference call altogether on citizen lobbying, because there's ways to do it better than just going in there and demanding to talk to someone. So we're going to do this in an organized way, and there's going to be a lot more information very soon coming out on how you can sign up to be part of Pledge to Amend and start either a new group or get involved with one of the groups that already exists. We the People Listen is a project we have been imagining for a while, and it will be a door-to-door canvas and listening project. The emphasis for this one will be internal skills building, so learning how to do door knocking and organize door knocking, which is a whole effort in and of itself, which is incredibly valuable when you're electing people to office or working on other campaigns. So this will be something that after doing this project, we will have under our belts for when we need to run candidates on this issue, which will be coming in years down the road. And then also, of course, it provides an opportunity for education and outreach to the people that we're talking to. So this project will run from July to November, and it'll start with an initial house party meeting for planning and training, and a way to bring in other people in your community, whether those are Move to Amend supporters that you don't know yet, but who have signed the petition that we can connect you with, or maybe friends and neighbors or coworkers that you want to pull into the campaign. And then the idea is that everyone in their own communities will go door knocking 1 to 2 days a month. It'll be up to you. We suggest weekend days, so you can go either twice a month or just once a month. And then there will be a monthly conference call to compare notes and talk about what we're learning and how to do it better. So this project doesn't start until July, so there will be more information on our website soon for how you can plug in. But that's the gist of what we're going to do through the summer and the fall. Then we will also be doing House Parties for Democracy. This is going to be an ongoing effort. So if you're part of a group that, or if you're not part of a group yet, rather, this might be a great way to get started with a Move to Amend group by holding a house party. So you can bring together friends and neighbors, and if you're open to having people that you don't know come to your house, or you don't have to do it at a house, you could also do it like in the basement of your church or your library meeting room, but a house has a nice, friendly feel to it. And if you're open to having people that you don't know, you can also advertise for this in the community through media, through social media, through posters, and then also we can send an announcement to the petition signers who have already signed the petition online that are in your community. And the emphasis will be on education and or fundraising. So if you're open to passing the hat or doing a pitch to try and raise some funds to send to Move to Amend, then we'd love that. If you want to just do it as an educational event, then that's fine too. So you can do both or one or the other. And we're developing a DVD video that you can watch about Move to Amend, so you don't even have to have that much information yourself on what this campaign is, and a house party kit of materials that we'll send to you. And there's also the possibility, generally, we probably won't do this unless there's a good crowd of people that are expected, but if you're going to have, say 20 or more people there, and we can make the timing work, we'd be happy to do a Skype conversation with a National Move to Amend organizer, or potentially an organizer from a group that already exists that's in your state, but not right next to you. And that way somebody can answer your questions live, or give you a live presentation on what Move to Amend is and how you can get involved and get started working in your community. And you can also collect petitions from people. You can, like I said, collect funds, and also potentially use this as a great first meeting for starting a new group. So there's no information right now on this link, but there will be very soon. Like I said, we're developing this video and this house party kit as we speak. We're going to do a couple days of action that we know of right now, and there may be others that get added, but we want to start organizing for these early. On May 10th is the 127th anniversary of the Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad case, which is known as basically the first place where corporations were able to successfully make the argument that they should have constitutional rights using the 14th Amendment, which was supposed to be passed to guarantee equal protection to folks who had formerly been slaves in the South. So there is some backstory to this case and an interesting controversy and conspiracy about whether they were even able to actually successfully do it there. But nonetheless, this is kind of the story of corporate personhood really in a lot of ways begins here. And we really want to emphasize that this issue goes deeper than Citizens United. This issue has been going on since well before Citizens United, and in a culture where a lot of people and organizations conflate this whole campaign with Citizens United. It's important that we make clear that it started well before that. And there's also a whole series of cases after the Santa Clara case that further expanded corporate constitutional rights. So doing something on this day provides an opportunity to tell that whole story. And there's an opportunity for creativity as well. There are several plays that have, and little skits that have been written giving either the in-depth story of this case and corporate constitutional rights, or just scratching the surface in a funny way. Those are available on our website, and there's also an opportunity for rallies and teach-ins on the stage. So more information will be coming soon. It's not until May, but we expect that we'll start sending out information about it in February. And if you want to sign up to do a day of action or to do something on May 10th, that's a Friday, or even that whole week, that would be great. And hopefully we'll get national media, and it'll be sort of like in the past, last year when we did events for the anniversary of Citizens United. Then we're also going to do a day of action on July 4th, which we have done for the last couple of years in a decentralized way, which will probably continue again with the theme, Declare Your Independence from Corporate Rule. And the idea, again, would be that folks can, in their own communities, in whatever ways make sense, use this opportunity as an Independence Day as a chance to spread the word about the campaign, potentially raise funds if you want to do something like a bake sale. Again, use the plays and skits. There's a lot of examples. Others have in the past done parades, walked in their 4th of July parade or created a float to tell the story of Move to Amend, what we're doing. And so all of those things are available. And we have resources from last year that we use. And so they just need to be compiled for 2013, and those will be up on the website very soon. And then this project, We the People Assemblies, is actually something that we are planning for January 2014, so a whole year from now. But we're really excited about it, and we really want to do this right. And so we want to start planning for it, even a year out here. And the idea is that it'll be participatory community meetings to imagine how to codify our movements. It should be plural there, sorry. Our movement, codify our movement demands, that's the plural part, constitutionally. So what that means is that, say we're also working on healthcare, or there are organizations in your community who are working to protect the environment, or who are working on other issues of social justice or peace. If we were to imagine where we really want those movements to go, and think of it in a constitutional way, what would be the constitutional amendments or the constitutional framework that would define the culmination of that? So, for example, say we're talking about healthcare. What if we had a constitutional right to healthcare? Or the environment? What if the environment had rights? Or people had a right to clean air, if you want to frame it a different way. And Move to Amend isn't actually really planning to put out our perspective on this per se. It's more that we want to create a platform for others to have this conversation, and we want to do it at the local level all over the country. And the emphasis will be on movement building and education as a way to bring in others to think about their movements through a constitutional lens, or through a legal lens, would be another way to put it. So the meetings would be held the actual assemblies would be held in January 2014, like I said, But this year will be spent developing our capacity at the national level and the local level to pull this off, and networking with potential community partners. This we also see as an excellent way to interface with the U.S. Social Forum, which probably, based on my past experience, a lot of people do not know about, but it is a huge movement led by people of color and low-income people in this country towards democracy and justice, and the kind of banner of the Social Forum internationally is Another World is Possible, and it was initially set up to kind of be parallel with the Economic Summit and the other meetings that the big kind of global corporate players and national countries have, setting the agenda for the world. And it was civil society coming together in Porto Alegre, Brazil, saying, you know, another world is possible. We don't have to do it this way. We can do it in a way that doesn't harm people or the planet. We can move forward, and we need to be talking about things that way. And then when it came to the United States, the understanding and kind of framework for it in the United States is another world is possible, but for another world to be possible, another U.S. is necessary. Since the United States is such and our corporations are such huge players on the international scene in terms of studying the course of things and really defining the laws and economic structures of not just our country, but other countries as well. And so that's what the Social Forum is about. It's an amazing opportunity. People's Movement Assemblies is something that has come out of the U.S. Social Forum, and a number of our members of our national leadership team are part of the leadership of the U.S. Social Forum, and we really want Move to Amend to better connect with those movements and those organizations in the years ahead. The next U.S. Social Forum will be in 2014. So by planning to have We the People Assemblies at the beginning of 2014, we're potentially also sowing seeds for the next step to be at the Social Forum in 2014, which will be in the summer. And it's undecided where it will be, but wherever it is, Move to Amend is going to be there in a big way, and we want these We the People Assemblies to set the stage for that. We're also looking potentially to try and get grant funding so that we could actually have a pretty sophisticated technology aspect of these We the People Assemblies, so that potentially we would have the ability to Skype in some framers at the national level, and then also a way for all of the comments and ideas and everything to come into one central place and be synthesized. And part of what we're looking at here is also the beginnings of the kinds of conversations that happened in Iceland, for example, when they just recently entirely redid their constitution and made it much more powerful and democratic. And so some of our webinars in the year ahead are also going to focus on some of those examples of constitutional renewal that other countries have seen, so that we can look to those as examples to kind of get at what, like I said, are deeper issues for what we're about after we pass this amendment, or even as we're passing this amendment. So the last project, I guess this is the last project on the list for 2013, is Stampede to Amend, which is also a continuation from last year. We sell stamps on our website, which you can use as your money or anything else. You can stamp envelopes, you can stamp checks, you can stamp anything that people are going to see. And kind of the point of this project is something like money or envelopes that are going through the mail. It's kind of like we don't know where they're going to go. So it provides some excitement. And we are definitely already getting back messages from people saying, hey, I got one of your bills in Ithaca, New York, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, and found out about your campaign that way, which is exciting. So the emphasis is on outreach, and there's not a lot of education that comes with a bill because it's just a little short message, but hopefully it brings people to our site, and it is doing that already, and they learn about our campaign that way. And so you can do that as an individual, but you can also do it more powerfully and involve others. So you can hold a stamp in either at your house and invite some friends to, withdraw a bunch of cash and stamp it, or to do it publicly. A lot of our affiliates, when they table, they have stamps, or we do that whenever we table nationally. And I'm seeing the question of if it's legal to stamp money like this. And what the law says is It is illegal to deface money for the purpose of taking it out of circulation or rendering it unusable or damaging it so that it's unusable. So our purpose is obviously not to get it out of circulation, in fact, just the opposite. And we have had attorneys that have looked at this. We have partnered in the past with Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream, who has actually been doing this in a very high-profile way. And there have been no instances of anyone getting in trouble or of Move to Amend being contacted or Ben Cohen being contacted by the federal government. So at some point that may happen, and we're prepared if it does, but I think it would be so unlikely that any individual would be responsible. But since it says move-to-amend.org on the bills, there's some chance that we might get contacted at some point, in which case we'd be happy to make the argument of how we are not trying to take the bills out of circulation at all. So those are the projects. And I see a question about media. Within all of these projects, there's a media component. So I probably should have said that. But the Pledge to Amend project certainly has a media component as we get state legislators to sign, and there will be, that'll be an ongoing effort. And then also as each legislator signs, the idea and some of the training that folks will get who are part of the project is how to make hay of that in the media as you get people to sign. The listening project will have a big media component. Our hope is to advertise that it's happening nationally ahead of time, and then also the results at the end, and to do that at the local level in every place that it is happening. And pretty much every single project that I went through has a media component with it. So, there's one more. And I see the questions that are coming, and we'll get through all. I promise we'll do all of them before we end. So our Barnstorming project is a continuation from last year. We're actually potentially going to add a couple new speakers. David Cobb, who many of you know because he barnstormed through your community, has been our primary spokesperson, and he gives a hell of a presentation. But we also have some other really great speakers in Move to Amend who are trying to figure out how to join the team as barnstormers. But probably David will still be the primary person who's doing most of it, just because of his schedule. So we've already visited the majority of the states and hundreds of communities. This is a great opportunity to start a new affiliate. That's how most of our affiliates have gotten started, is by having a speaker in their community to kickstart that. It's also a great way to partner with other organizations if you're an already existing group or even a new group getting started, and to bring in some others right from the beginning. Remember that we have this real emphasis on coalition building. So reaching out to others and asking them to co-sponsor the event and to participate is a really great way to do that. And obviously to grow your membership and volunteers. And then we help do local media around with tours, and it's an opportunity for you to potentially meet media contacts as well. So if you'd like to bring a Move to Amend speaker to your community, there's a whole list of information about how to do that on the site, and we're happy to work with you to do that. And then lastly, collecting signatures. This is something that can be worked in with every single one of the other projects, and hopefully it will be. Our goal is to collect 500,000 signatures this year. In all honesty, that was our goal last year, and we didn't make it. There's a lot of reasons why, the primary reason being that we didn't really have a database that was set up to facilitate exponentially getting more signatures, and we're switching to a new system for this year, and already the rate of our signature collection is a lot higher than it was last year, so I think we're well on target. I'd love it if we got more than this. But the reason why it's important is because it brings new people into our campaign. So you can do it as an individual. If you go to this page on the site, move-to-amend.org/toolkit/petitioning, you can download a paper petition. There's also, if you go to the petition telephone number that people can just text the word sign to, and they can sign the petition by just texting us. You can take the paper petition wherever you go, just as on an individual level, or more powerfully, you can go to where there's groups of people collected, so community events or farmers markets or festivals or what have you, or you can table in front of grocery stores or be creative. But it's just really important to bring in new people to the campaign. Obviously, you can also do this through the internet and just sending emails. And if those of you who are on this webinar today haven't had a chance yet to just email everyone you know and ask them to sign the petition or to post it to your Facebook, please do that. It's really important that we grow our numbers and have a bigger pool of people to get involved and to show that we are growing. And we use the petition signatures that get folks on our list. And so they get our emails, which probably all of you get, and find out about ways to get involved with the campaign. If anybody doesn't want to get those emails, it's very easy to get off. So we make a point to, not trick anybody or spam anybody, but just as really as an opportunity for folks to know how to get involved. And then also our local affiliates have access to the petition signers in their area, so then they can let people know how to plug in to stuff that's going on on the ground with our campaign in their community. And then also, whenever we're going to be using these signatures as we go to our state legislators for the Pledge to Amend campaign, and let them know, how many people have already signed. The signature numbers also get used when we go to local elected officials and ask them to pass resolutions. So it's really important to have as many people as possible. And then just a couple other announcements, things that you want to look for. We're going to be hosting an internet radio show every week starting January 17th, every Thursday. And it'll be an opportunity to share what's going on around the country with the movement to amend, and also to explore some of these deeper issues around constitutional renewal. The hosts are Egberto Willies and Laura Bonham, who are two members of our national leadership team. And if you go to blogtalkradio.com/move-to-amend, that's the page. And there's a link on the front page of our site now, too. We're going to continue the regional convergences. Last year we had 7 grassroots regional convergences across the country. They're a training and education opportunity in person for a weekend. So we're going to hit the areas where we didn't get in 2012. So Charlotte, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas fall in that category. And then we're going to circle back to the Pacific Northwest again, just because we have so much activity there. So we're going to be doing 3 regional convergences in 2013. And the idea is that folks from the surrounding region come, so not just those states, but anybody who's within driving distance, and sometimes folks have even flown. So the details about where will be up on the site soon, but that's the when. And then this year we're due for another National Democracy Convention. The first one was held in 2011. Move to Amend was a major sponsor and convener. It's actually 9 conferences under one umbrella of a democracy convention, and it's to show how all the different sectors of our society, whether we're talking about elections or the environment or labor, connect through and build to a democracy movement. And Move to Amend's role is to convene the Conference on Constitutional Renewal, and we're really excited to do that again, and it'll be August 7 to 11 in Madison, Wisconsin. Stay tuned for details about that. The website is democracyconvention.org, and I know that the main organization that hosts it is Liberty Tree Foundation, which is one of our partners, and they're working on updating it for the 2013 Democracy Convention soon. So, before we get to these next steps, let's go through these questions. So if anybody else has questions, I'm happy to answer them. Go ahead and type them in the chat, and I'll just go in the order that we've got here. So, let's see. Okay, I'm going to skip through. Sorry, hold on a sec. Okay. Okay. By local resolutions, which locality is being spoken about? I presume local, county, city issues, though it could be by state, rather unimportant, though I like clarity. So just to clarify that when I'm talking about resolutions, local resolutions, I'm talking about municipal resolutions at the city, county, or sometimes village or town level. And we will also be working towards resolutions at the state level through ballot initiatives. There are resolutions that have passed through state legislatures, but we actually are really not that happy about those because we think that it's kind of a wasted opportunity to work through the state legislature when you could be taking it directly to the citizens through citizens initiatives. And in the states that don't have the initiative process, then it's really, really important to make sure you've really done the groundwork to go from the ground up so that people actually know that these resolutions are happening. So part of our Pledge to Amend campaign will be a way to lay the groundwork for doing state resolutions that are much more powerful than the ones that have already passed, which have only focused on Citizens United, with the exception of Vermont and Hawaii. And it'll be an opportunity to really maximize the public participation, which, remember, for us, it's all about taking this campaign to the American people. We don't see lawmakers or legislators as the ones who are really going to lead the way. So a couple people asked questions about some of the other amendment groups. I see, are we teaming up with other amendment groups? Are you working with Public Citizen and Free Speech for People, et cetera? So we have historically been trying to find ways to work with the other groups, and we did a lot of that in 2012. We're not opposed to doing that in 2013, and many of our affiliates are working on the ground in coalitions with some of these other organizations. But for us, the real distinction is, are these other organizations willing to support an amendment that says that corporations and other artificial entities do not have constitutional rights, with no loopholes for nonprofits and unions, no exceptions that will cause the amendment to basically be ineffective, and also that money is not speech. And so far, there are no other organizations that have put forward language that has the language of move to amend. So while we are trying to find ways to work together when possible, we also really want to make sure that that distinction is very clear and that we don't just kind of muddy it up and say that we're about money in politics or Citizens United when that's not what we want to be about, and we need to make sure that we don't settle for a lesser solution and end up with a watered down amendment that doesn't actually solve the problems. So I think you're going to see in 2014 that actually we're going to be drawing those distinctions more clearly than we did last year. But having said that, there is every other month conference, or every other week, conference call with all of these organizations that we have at the national level, and that's where we try as much as possible to work together and find ways to partner as long as they don't undermine our agenda. That's the best way to put that. Somebody, let's see, Dan asked, why doesn't the amendment provide for public funding of elections? Definitely a good issue. I think probably all, or at least most of the organizations and individuals in Move to Amend have a lot of sympathy and support for publicly funded elections. But from our perspective, it doesn't really make sense to put that in the language of an amendment because that's more of a legislative solution, and we need this amendment in order to have a solution like that. But that's kind of mechanics rather than framework for how to think about who can participate in elections. And so that is why it doesn't have publicly funded elections. That was a conversation that we've had, and we might be open to having that again. But every single time that we've had it, we've really just come down on, it's not that we don't support publicly funded elections per se, but it's not, but publicly funded elections is not necessarily something that makes sense to put in the Constitution. It's a legislative solution that many of us agree should be what happens. And also we really put out there Move to Amend as having the two planks that we have, and changing it along the way felt like that wouldn't be true to what folks had signed up for. Let's see. again, there's more questions about the other organizations. I just really want to emphasize that that the other organizations are not necessarily coming from the same place where we are, and they're also not necessarily doing the campaigns that they're doing in the same way. And so all of the things that I went through at the beginning about like our principles and where we're coming from on movement building and emphasizing all of that are not commitments that the other organizations have necessarily made. That's why we don't see ourselves as like really the same thing. We try to find ways to partner, but all of those organizations have been invited to join the Move to Amend Coalition, which was launched the day of the Citizens United decision and was conceived several months before that, and they all declined because they were focusing on other things or feel as though the constitutional amendment proposal that should happen is different than what we think. And so we don't all agree, and while it's important that we have to try and find ways to, work with what we've got, at the same time, it's really important that for us, we've pledged that we will not support anything less than an amendment that says all artificial entities are not do not have constitutional rights and money is not speech. And so we're happy to work with anybody who's committed to those two principles. And the reason why those other organizations are not part of our coalition is because they haven't committed to that at the same level as we have. And also for folks' information, there is a page on our site. If you go to our website and just look at the main page under amendments, it's in the top toolbar. There is a drop down that says amendment comparison, and you can actually see all the different proposals that were proposed with the last Congress. We'll update it with this new Congress as new proposals come forward, and you can also see which organizations are behind which language and what those amendments would do and what they would not do from as it relates to kind of what our agenda is. So that's a good way if you're confused or not sure about where everybody else stands or what the differences are. We try to spell it out very clearly right there. And also, I should have said in the announcement that stay tuned. The Move to Amend language will be introduced in Congress probably by the end of this month, if not the beginning of February. And unfortunately, I can't publicly, since I don't know where this will go, say more about that out of respect for the Congress people who we're working with, who have asked us to not announce it, before we all announce it together. But I'm happy to report that our language will be up there right with everyone else's. So, somebody mentioned you're using Chrome. So I'm sorry, the links in this presentation do not direct links. So you have to either write them down or I will send a follow-up email to everyone who was part of this presentation or who was here today with all the links so that you can find them and go directly to them. And then also there's a survey that'll be at the end to indicate which of these things you're interested in and get information about those things in particular. So let's see what else. Have you reached out to Organizing for America? We haven't explicitly reached out to Organizing for America. We're emphasizing a nonpartisan campaign, and so for that reason we haven't, but some of the local chapters have reached out to us, and we're happy to work with them if they want to kind of transition or have a Move to Amend group as part of the work that they're doing, then that is great. Question regarding canvassing. What database are you using to select and record information gathered? We are switching over to use Nation Builder, and I think we're probably not going to work off of lists, so we're not necessarily going to be only going to registered voters, and that could be a component of what folks do if you want to register people to vote. If they're not already registered, you're welcome to do that. So it'll just be going door knocking to every door that you pass by, so we're not going to need lists ahead of time, like if you were working on an electoral campaign. But you can, but then you will be entering the data that you get in our Nation Builder database. I think I probably already answered this question about state and regional. I guess the one thing I would add is that there are a number of states that are putting together state network of affiliates in the state and having monthly conference calls, and that's something that we want to help foster in any state that isn't already doing that, and also have members of our national leadership team join in those calls for our regions and help support you that way. So I think California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, and Ohio, and New York are the states that I'm aware of that are having monthly calls. And I'm not sure if they're every month for all of those states, but if you are part of a Move to Amend affiliate, which I know you are, Jeff, and want to get your state having a monthly call, we'd be happy to help you with that. And also, as new affiliates come on, plugging them in with those state calls, just so that folks can support each other at the state level. You talked about how the database was put together and how we can use it. Well, the database has everyone who has signed the petition through the website nationally or also through on the ground locally. And it's actually something that's only available to local Move to Amend affiliates. So if you're interested in affiliating, you can find more information on our website at movetoamend.org/affiliate. Again, that's movetoamend.org/affiliate. And once a group is an affiliate, then you have access to the petition signers in your area, and you can use it to contact them through email or phone, and also track volunteers. And I won't go too far into that, but if you are interested in that and have questions along the lines of becoming an affiliate, feel free to follow up using the email on the screen, and we can talk the details. Okay. Let's see, that's a very long comment. Is David Cobb's 2013 schedule available? We're actually putting it together now, so we're going to put out a call to our affiliates to see who's interested in hosting him. The schedule through February is already set, and the beginning of March is starting to be put together now, and we'd like to actually have the schedule at least 3 months in advance. So if you're part of a local affiliate, please stay tuned. If you want to bring David, we're going to try and put a call out and then see how to reconcile everything that everybody wants. And we're also going to emphasize the places where we haven't been yet, and also the places that we're interested in prioritizing for 2014 ballot initiatives. So the schedule is not set yet, and if you're interested in bringing him, then please indicate that on the survey at the end of this webinar, and then we'll follow up with you for specifics. Toby asks, where can I inquire further about the May 3 to 5 Portland convention or convergence? The details will be on our website very soon. I actually just posted a placeholder today, and expect by Monday that we'll have more details. We have to get a venue still and everything, but those dates are locked in, and we'll be posting registration and all of that sort of stuff like we did for the convergences last year shortly. So stay tuned, and then expect to get emails about it. All of you in the region in the Pacific Northwest will get follow-up emails about it. Can we get access to your slide presentation? Yes. The slides and the recording for this webinar are always posted online. If you go to movetoamend.org/webinars, you can access those, and then also it's sent to everybody who's here. So if you gave us your email, we will be sending the link to you as soon as it's uploaded, which should be by tomorrow. Okay. Are you looking for a constitutional, are you looking for a constitutional convention? There are mixed opinions about which route we need to go for that within Move to Amend, and we don't really have consensus about that. So where Move to Amend stands on it is that we don't need to answer that question right now, because the work that we need to be doing is the same either way. We need to build a powerful movement. And so our track is to give Congress a chance and to try that route, but we also need to have a plan B and be ready for if Congress refuses to act. But either way, we're going to need to have millions of people involved, whether it's about forcing Congress to respond or whether we're making sure that a convention is a positive and democratic thing and not something that moves us backwards. So our work is the same right now either way, and we do need to cross that bridge at some point, but it doesn't have to be yet. Let's see. So like I said, the webinar slides and recording should be available probably by tonight. If not tonight, then tomorrow morning. The database that we're using and switching over to is Nation Builder. I think I already said that. Just making sure. I'm going through all these questions. Example on the abuses caused by corporate personhood. Well, there is some information on the site about that already, and I know that there are some affiliates that are working on developing more details. But if you go to movetoamend.org and then under Learn More, go to Recommended Reading, the information that we have now is available there. And John, I'm guessing you already know about it, but for anybody else, Why Abolish All Corporate Constitutional Rights is probably the best thing. It talks about how corporations use not just the First Amendment, like with Citizens United, but other constitutional so-called rights to overturn law. We are not having any problem with partner organizations signing up for corporations are not people and money is not speech in Illinois. Awesome. It is true that in some places, I know that in Illinois you're working with Common Cause, and in Massachusetts we had a great relationship working with Common Cause last year as well. So Common Cause has, at least internally and to some extent publicly, said that they support the two things that Move to Amend is calling for. Not all of the resolutions that they've advocated for have been consistent with that position, so we're not sure. But Common Cause is the only organization like Move to Amend that has folks working on the ground, and so they have said that their local chapters, really state chapters, can decide how they want to approach this. And so because of that, there are several places where Common Cause has been a great partner. And if that is true in your state, and if that is working with you, then that's great. We don't have a problem with that. It's more just in the places where Common Cause has taken a different approach and supported resolutions that only talk about money in elections, or Citizens United that were concerned. All right, let's make sure. What is the best way for a newcomer to learn about who is the brain trust behind this movement? If you go to our website and again go to movetoamend.org under Move MTA Coalition, there's information about Move to Amend and our leadership team and the endorsing organizations and the founding organizations. So that's where I would suggest you go, and if you have any questions after that, feel free to email us. Historically, has Move to Amend been met with good support from elected officials? And if so, is it partisan or nonpartisan? Move to Amend has, on the whole, had a lot of positive response from elected officials, especially at the local level, which is where we targeted. And we'll see what happens as we get going to the state level. I think the state level will be harder because a lot of those legislators are elected by corporate money, just like they are at the federal level. So we're not naive about that, and that's part of why we still are emphasizing working at the local level. And if you haven't had a lot of work happen in your state yet at the local level, starting at the state level maybe is not going to be the best route, because you might find that the state legislators are not that sympathetic and not willing to stick their necks out without seeing that there's more of a groundswell of support from their constituents. So it depends, but I would say that at the elected level, it has been more partisan, in all honesty. There have definitely been some of our resolutions where they have lost because the vote has been on party lines, with Democrats and Greens and independents more supporting, and Republicans not as much. However, whenever our resolutions have gone to voters, they have passed almost always by a supermajority of over 75%, even in more conservative communities, really showing that Republicans on the ground are happy to support our amendment in large numbers. but folks who are elected, maybe not as much. So what that means is there's a disconnect potentially within the Republican Party, and we're going to need to build relationships with regular Republican voters and have them pressure their lawmakers from their party to let them know that they're out of touch with where their party membership is. Okay, let's see. When will you transition to Nation Builder? That will hopefully be done by the end of this month. It's always harder than you think to work out all the little kinks, but I think we're still on track to do so by the end of this month. If you are a Move to Amend affiliate, then you will have access to not just your local petition signers, but your whole state, but you have to be a local affiliate. Let's see, are you planning to develop an online discussion forum for coordinating and information sharing? We actually have an online listserv that is for our affiliates and the people active with our affiliates, and that is the main way that we are doing information sharing internally. And we would be more open to doing something like that publicly if we had more capacity to actually moderate it and make sure that it was working. So it's something that we might do down the road, and we definitely have talked about and considered at different times, but that's the kind of thing that you have to make sure is moderated well and productive, and at this point we just don't have capacity to prioritize that over some of this other stuff that we're doing. So let's see, anything else? Sounds good. It's also still available. Victor, it is for just a little bit. I will send an email to all the affiliates with a warning when it will stop being available, but for now you can still access the SALSA database if you're an affiliate and you already have access. My local council has a sweetheart relationship with the Chamber of Commerce. Yep, that is the case sometimes. So if you're from a community where the local city council maybe is not going to be super sympathetic, then that just means that the work needs to start with reaching out to voters and constituents of those elected officials to pressure them and let them know that they should support the resolution. So doing maybe one of these other projects that gives you the opportunity to grow your local list and membership and outreach and get media exposure might be better to start with than a resolution campaign, so that you can really have the will of the local community behind you, and then go into the elected official chambers. The other option, I don't know, I didn't catch where you lived. If you have the initiative process, then you can also go around your elected officials. But like I said, that's not available to everyone. So we're happy to work through those details with you. And it's best, if anybody is interested in getting involved with any of these projects, it's good to consider and think about starting a Move to Amend affiliate group. You can do that along the way. You certainly don't need to do that before starting, but we really are set up to best support and provide infrastructure for our affiliates. That's the structure of our campaign. And so it's not that we can't for others, but that's the best way. So as you're thinking about how you want to plug in, also be thinking about whether there is already a group in your community, and if not, how to use whatever opportunity you're most interested in or project you're most interested in to also have that be a way to start a Move to Amend group. Let's see, looks like last one is just Robin. I couldn't send an email blast this week. Robin's from our Anchorage affiliate. Robin, let me follow up with you offline about that. I saw your email, but I've been out of town. I just got back last night, so I wasn't able to help you, but let me try to do that offline. And it looks like that's the last of the questions, and we're right at an hour here. If there are any other burning ones, speak now, or follow up with us by email. The website, or the email address is online, so feel free to follow up or give us a call if you have any questions about any of this. So what's going to happen next is when the webinar closes, you will be directed to a screen, a web page with questions about which of these projects you're most interested in and would like to get more information about. Don't be alarmed by the fact that the screen says, will you volunteer. If you're not sure that you want to plug in with something, please go ahead and just check it off anyway, and you can always opt out if it turns out that you don't actually have time or you change your mind or whatnot. But that way we can just make sure that you get the information as soon as we have it about how to plug in next and the resources that we have. So one last comment here, please don't assume that local chambers of commerce are in line or support the U.S. Chamber. Local chambers may be very willing to get on board. And I am reading it because that's absolutely right. And there are actually a lot of local businesses are a great constituency to reach out to and very worth reaching out to. So that's absolutely true. It totally depends on the Chamber of Commerce. But the National Chamber of Commerce is definitely not an ally in this, and that's actually one of the difficulties in terms of reaching chambers, that there sometimes that disconnect of how the National Chamber really is supporting what's good for multinational corporations and not what's good for local businesses, even if they're incorporated, and some of that education work is what we need to do. And there's some information about that on our website, and we're also happy to help you with that further as best we can. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm really looking forward to working with you all in 2013. I hope that we get to, and that if we haven't met personally, we get to do that at some point. And again, please stay on the line for just a little bit and complete the survey at the end. And also, if you have any feedback about the webinar, the technology, or the process, or anything, there's a comment box for you to fill that in as well. So thanks again. Have a good night. Our next webinar will be February 5th. We don't actually